Good morning, my name is Carlos Rivera, and today we will be talking about the cost of attending Ivy League schools.
I'm Nicholas Morone.
I'm Ryan Croft.
And I'm Lynn. Our research question is, to what extent have college students in the U.S. have been affected by attending Ivy League schools from 2008 to 2016? Our argument is that students have been negatively impacted by attending Ivy League schools.
Our claim is that the cost of attending an Ivy League school outweighs the benefits. As seen in this graph here, the national average for cost of room and board across all public colleges in the U.S. is $10,800 versus at every single Ivy League school, there's over a $5,000 increase. As seen at Princeton, has the highest at $19,000. With costs like this, you would expect high qualities of room and board, when in fact, they experience many things such as mold. This is a picture from the University of Pennsylvania. Now this dorm is not the only one who's experienced things such as mold. Many dorms in these areas become contaminated with mold, and part of this is due to lack of air conditioning. Air conditioning is not supplied with the dorm, but is required through the dorm rooms to be put in during certain cooling periods, which means that students are only available access to air conditioning during certain periods and are required to install it at an additional cost of $200 to them, plus $50 just for running it. Another poor and demeaning condition that students face is that at Harvard, they actually have fellow students cleaning the bathrooms for pay under Harvard dorm crew. Students are paid to clean other students' bathrooms. This exposes them to many unsafe chemicals and demeaning conditions. It targets low-income students and is not how students who work very hard to get to Harvard would expect to be spending their time.
So I will be talking about how the mental health of students is not, the cost of attending Ivy League schools is not only monetary but also mental. So as you can see by this picture by the Daily Pennsylvanian, the grades for attending Ivy League schools actually are not even above a D+. There's a very large lack of counseling, which actually hurts the students not to have someone to actually go to. There's a very high workload, which puts more stress on the students, and there's also a very high pressure environment. As we will later mention, Ivy League schools are very prestigious, and it is very, there's a lot of pressure put on the student to keep up with all others. As seen in this graph by the American Psychological Association, about 41.80% of students have some sort of depression. 36.40% of students have a sort of anxiety, which all together contributes to the 64% of students with mental illnesses, not only depression and anxiety, but also others that drop out of college.
Our next point is that the education that students receive from Ivy League colleges are not directly impacted by the education that they receive. Now, when students apply to a college, they are mainly looking for education as it helps prepare them for the future. However, as Carlos and Ryan have outlined earlier, there are many costs that come with attending Ivy League schools. And as you can see here, students pay more than just education. For example, right here, Ivy League schools are incredibly prestigious. Now, this prestige is a big factor of a student's success, as it helps them with networking within the school and also with opportunities later after college. In addition, a significant amount of selection bias goes on in Ivy League schools as their acceptance rates are notoriously low. This means that most students are already on track to succeed, which puts into question of how good the education actually is here. This is relevant to our claim because the benefits of college would obviously be the education, but as you can see here, these factors are not actually education, which puts into question how is Ivy League colleges actually worth their costs. reason why people think that Ivy League colleges have quality education is because of their tuition. However, more factors go into their tuition than just education. As you can see in this pie chart over here, 46% of student tuition is used for financial aid. This means that most students are actually paying for other students, and this financial aid obviously goes to students with lower incomes who cannot pay for Ivy League tuition. In addition, 54% of student tuition goes to other things such as upkeep, staff pay, and etc. But another factor that could go into this 54% is prestige, as I mentioned earlier. This prestige that Ivy League schools give can attract other applicants to the school, which can raise the rankings as they are more desirable.
Thank you. I'll be talking about the student debt involved in Ivy League schools. Up to 70% of students need student loans from Ivy League schools, and the average borrower owes more than $37,000 after graduation. As seen in this chart, explaining Harvard, Yale, Penn University, Northwestern, as well as Cornell's amount of student borrowing. Cornell is up to 30% of students borrowing money to pay off their tuition. Now, according to Jessica Gregory, college tuition and fees has risen 4 times faster than the average consumer price index since 1978. The consumer price index is the average amount of goods and services based on how much homes are making, which therefore explains that tuition is running higher than people can pay it off because they're making less money. Student debt is affecting the economy, therefore. Student debt has become a very large aspect of college life, and as previously stated, many students take out loans to pay off the higher tuitions. As seen in this chart, with the y-axis representing the homeownership rate and the x-axis representing the ages of college graduates, the green line is higher than both the red and the blue, with representing college education and no student loan debt. As you can see, homeownership rates are much higher among younger, recent college graduates up to 35 years old than people with college education and student loan debt, and with no college education at all. This is therefore harming the economy because homeownership rates are lower with college education and student debt. Therefore, it'll affect the future. Our resolution to our problem, to our question, is due to the various negative aspects of Ivy League colleges. The majority of students will suffer more than they would benefit from attending them.
Some limitations to this resolution are that some aspects of Ivy League schools are actually positive. As I stated before, there is a hefty amount of prestige that goes with attending Ivy League colleges, which can help students become successful. And personal experiences vary as well. For example, a student that's more economically well off might be able to curb some of the dorm costs and the mental health because they don't have to worry about tuition, and they have an easier time paying off their tuition. Thank you.
Clap, 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 clap. There's no one here. Sorry, so I clapped. All right, you guys can come just kind of stand in front of the board. That's good right there. Just slide in, Nick. Okay. All right, so we got a question. We'll start with you, Ryan. Describe how the content of the team presentation changed as a result of your discussions.
So the main thing that changed with the content is that we wanted there to be a solid economic range during it. So we changed the time period as to when Obama was president to account for different variances in the economy that could affect tuition and other people's aspect of how hard it would be to get into an Ivy League. And another thing that we changed as a result of a group discussion is that Lynn brought up that the prestige would actually benefit many students when they were going into the workforce. So we wanted to include that as a counterclaim, understand how this could, whether this outweighed the cost or not.
Okay. Nick, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem?
I think Lynn's work helped me the most understand the problem, because hers was the quality of education, and my previous understanding was that Ivy Leagues were very prestigious and that you paid for good education, because my findings showed that there's more tuition going into Ivy League schools, but technically students are paying more for not a great quality of education, and as described on the slide, a lot of it's going towards financial aid to other students.
Okay. Lynn, in what way did you improve your ability to work with a group as a result of this project?
Well, I learned how to communicate better. But Ryan was a little late when she was showing her individual research report to everyone, but I ended up learning how to be more assertive and using communication tools such as texting in order to make sure that everybody had the information that they needed in order to create these slides.
All right, thank you. And save the best for last. What's a way that your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
A way that it makes me think about my individual research differently is I never exactly thought of, for example, what Ryan said about the dorm conditions and how they were living and how that could contribute to the actual overall mental health. Knowing and living in those conditions where there was mold everywhere could actually decrease their mental health, which actually made me think about mine.